center field. Back it goes and gone. The 0-2 pitch. He struck him out swinging at 101. The swing and a drive. Left field and deep. Back it goes and gone. And the Twins walk it off again.
It is Friday at 9:35, which means we visit with the voice of the Minnesota Twins on Bally Sports North. Cory Provus joins us north of the border as the Twins are set to open up a series with the Toronto Blue Jays. They remain red hot, won 15 of their last 17 after they took a series from the Mariners yesterday and scoring 11 runs. They beat around Seattle pretty good. We were just visiting off air that this last stretch, you talked about it with us when you joined last Friday, this would be more impressive if they played well than what they did the previous 10. And they did. They won 5 out of 7.
I think what they've done here, Dom, is they've silenced and almost flushed the narrative about, like, yeah, you won 10 in a row, but who have you played? White Sox, Angels, not very good teams. So then they stepped up in weight class and won 5 out of 7 against 2 of the best pitching staffs in baseball. I mean, they hung losses on Tanner Houck, who at the time when the series began could make an argument, may start the All-Star game. The guy they beat yesterday can make an argument. He may start the All-Star game, and Logan Gilbert. So beating, Luis Castillo and even George Kirby, and really hitting Kirby and Gilbert in a way that no other team really has, I think it was very impressive. So to me, yes. I mean, it was great that they won those 12 in a row and 10 of those against those bad teams, but to go 5-2 against those 2 teams. Seattle came in winners of 6 straight series. Very impressive. So the Twins are playing really good baseball right now and a lot of confidence entering the series this weekend.
Especially how they started the game yesterday, Cory. They got 5 runs in the bottom of the first and hitting around Gilbert in a way, like you mentioned, he hadn't been hit all year, and Margot with a big hit to clear. And then that was just it was a tone setter right away to start things yesterday.
It was Margot's biggest swing. I said as much in the call, biggest swing as a Twin, and because his performance has been subpar. I mean, it really has been. Offensively, defensively, his speed has just disappeared. So for him to come up in that spot, I didn't see that coming. I didn't love the lineup yesterday, and Rocco even was asked about it pregame, and no Correa. You're moving guys around a little bit. Kepler's DHing. Larnach hasn't played much outfield because of his injured foot. So they were limited and maybe a tad slower than they would have been in other days and games. But to their credit, they rallied and took the competitive aspect out of that game after 1 inning yesterday.
That was the part that was – you mentioned that about the lineup. I'm glad you brought that up because I saw it. I'm like, all right, that's a little different to go on a getaway day, and yet they pound out 11 runs yesterday. So there you go. Why baseball is so unique that way.
As we said, Morty has this line saying, baseball has a lot of stats, and it's kind of some tongue-in-cheek there, but it's true. And then we said it a couple times on the air. I mean, I'm such a fan of John Sterling, now the retired voice of the Yankees, and just a great character in the game, and he'll be in the Hall of Fame one day. But, his longtime partner, Susan Waldman, he would often say when something odd would happen, that's baseball, Susan. So we said that a couple times because, yes, going into that game, I did not see that game going the way it did. And the Twins certainly hitting Logan Gilbert in the manner that they did. And that's why I say to you this morning, that's baseball, Susan.
So Ryan Jeffers, AL MVP candidate? Too early to say that? He's certainly been the Twins all-star so far this year, right?
I mean, Ohtani is on another planet. He's in the National League, of course, now, so you don't have to worry about him. But there have been some great stories so far in baseball this season. But Ryan Jeffers is playing like an all-star minimum right now. He's been unbelievable. He's been among the better hitters in the game. And I just had breakfast with Glenn Perkins, and we were talking about him on the walk over. And we're going to show the stat tonight, but of his last 5 or 6 2-strike hits, they've all been for extra bases. They've all been doubles or home runs. And you think 2 strikes, you're in trouble, looking to make contact. You may just kind of poke one into right, little soft base hit. Not him. And with 2 strikes, he's got an approach that is not easy to do. It's not about contact. He's still making impact with 2 strikes, and that's easier said than done. So, yeah, we're looking at one of the best hitters in the game right now. And Ryan Jeffers, in terms of his OPS, in terms of his WRC+, his weighted on base average, anything you do to measure the game's elite hitters right now, at least this season, Ryan Jeffers is in that conversation.
Was there any fundamental changes, Corey, that he made when you talked to him in the spring?
He changed his swing last year.
Okay.
So he had a whole different, because 20, Jeffers, when he debuted in 2020, wasn't bad. It was that shortened season. But then his numbers fell off in 21. They weren't great in 22. He had some injury in there, too, with a broken thumb that I think certainly was a part of it. But it was the lack of production that the Twins were getting from Jeffers, which was the impetus to sign Christian Vasquez to the deal that they did. A 3-year deal for Vasquez, because they were just not sure what Jeffers was going to be, because he was really struggling, especially offensively. And that was always what they liked about him. He was a high pick, second-round pick out of college. They thought his offense, this guy is going to be an elite hitter. They liked his framing. Other parts of his defense, they thought they could help tighten up and clean up as his career got going. But then, to see him change it and redid his whole swing with David Hopkins and others in 2023, and then not too many adjustments here for 24, because he put up such a good season last year. But what you do notice is it seems like with 2 strikes, he almost enhances his stance a little bit. He gets a bit wider and just wants a better base to get going with his swing. That if he's fooled with 2 strikes, he's protecting that he still has his balance. He's not going to be out in front. So that to me is what we notice, is that with 2 strikes, he maybe widens that base a little bit and is able to choke up. He does choke up a little bit too with 2 strikes, but still, when he does, as we saw yesterday's home run came in a 1-2 count, he still has plenty of power.
There are 2 other guys I want to mention. One we were talking off air. One I wanted to mention last week and I forgot is Jose Miranda, who we did not see basically all of 2023, has come up when the Twins need him and is hitting again. Something we didn't really see. He struggled and was sent down. We didn't see him for a majority of 23. He's found his stroke again that he had in 22 and part of 21.
So the Twins had, I think, a tough call to make.
Yeah.
And Carlos Correa came back off the IL. It was either going to be Jose Miranda or Austin Martin. And some of that was determined based on the roster at the time, but also the last 7 or 8 games before that transaction. And Martin cooled off and Miranda got hot. And, Jose Miranda had shoulder surgery on his right throwing shoulder in October last year. So everything was behind. When camp opened up, he still wasn't able to throw across the diamond. We saw him DH, saw him play some first base, but he was not cleared to really start throwing until March. So everything was a little late with him. And so that, I think, played into why he didn't begin the season with the big league club and began the year at AAA. But, he's done fine. He's played, I think, a really good third base too, in the absence of Royce Lewis. You were seeing more of him out there. I still like Willie Castro too at third base. I really do. I think that's his best infield position. I like him more there than I do at short. And obviously he's playing center field until Byron comes back. But I think Miranda's done just fine. I think batting where he does, kind of in the lower part, works. And he's got a strong arm and he's in good shape. And I think he's really working at it every day to get better. He doesn't take this for granted. So it's a good story seeing him kind of, reemerge himself after maybe being dropped in the depth chart with an injury-plagued 2023.
Or getting past maybe in the organization, right? Is that maybe the best way to say it? Yeah,
that's a good point.
When you look at what Chris Paddock has done, I think for Twins fans who saw him pitch in the postseason, like, all right, well, is there enough? I don't know if there was enough of a sample size to say, is he ready to go? It seems over the last 3 or 4 starts, though, Corey, that's the Paddock that the Twins traded for prior to the start of the season a couple years ago.
And nobody liked that trade at the time because Taylor Rogers was beloved. He was really good.
Really good.
He was an all-star. What are we doing? Chris Paddock, it seems like there's some injury history here in the past and maybe even present. Emilio Pagan came over in that trade. Pagan struggled in 2022. We all saw that, but Pagan was better in 23.
Yes.
Pagan, great guy, one of my favorites too, and he put together a much better 2023. But obviously, what happened the year before was on the front of everybody's mind at the time. So yes, then Paddock sure enough blew out in May of 2022, and we didn't see him for a long time. And then we saw him emerge out of the bullpen late last year and look really good. And then as he was getting himself right and getting himself back as a starter, there was some noticeable rust there But his last 4 starts now have been pretty awesome. Seeing him find some velo again, getting out of jams. His changeup has certainly looked better. He added a slider, this offseason. His curveball and slider, those are his third and fourth pitches. He's a guy that's still going to rely heavily on his fastball changeup. But, I saw an interview that Paddock just did on MLB Network. I think he was on there yesterday. He was on there yesterday morning with the Pablo Lopez, that yellow jersey that Twins fans are now able to wear if they buy that ticket on Pablo home day starts. That Paddock said that he thinks he's thinking about writing a book, that he's had Tommy John a couple of times. And he said, he already has the name. He'd call it Stitches to kind of tell his story of perseverance and coming back, not from just one injury, but two. And the grind that came with that, the mental challenge that came with it, not just the physical challenges that came with 2 Tommy John surgeries. So I didn't know that. I found that out yesterday when I heard the interview. But he's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, with Pablo and Joe Ryan going tonight, and Bailey Ober's been steady. And Simeon Woods Richardson, I thought the best start of his career is what he did the other night. I think that, this starting staff is performing better than I thought they would have. When you take Sonny Gray out and you take Kenta out, you don't really add too much to it. With Anthony Sclafani out all year, and we won't see him ever throw a pitch as a Twin. I was a little unsure. I still think they're thin. I don't think there's, AAA. There's Louis Varland and David Festa. Not much beyond that right now. So that's not ideal.
No.
But let's hope that these guys stay healthy. And if they do, this team's going to hang around for a while.
Last question before we take a break here. I know Rocco got asked about Royce Lewis. What can you tell us about seeing him sometime soon? ?
I mean, Dan Hayes has a story this morning in The Athletic that, their recent MRI showed still some inflammation in his quadricep muscle. So you have that. That's factual. But then Royce joined us yesterday in the second inning, and the dude sounds like he wants to play tomorrow. So you have a guy, and he told us, and Doe Hung Park, who's one of my favorite writers who covers the Twins from MLB.com, had this story, and then we asked him, Royce, about it yesterday. What's been different? This rehab has been more challenging, it seems like, for you than it was the knee. And he said, because with the knee, I knew I was out. I knew there was no rush. This was going to be a year. With this, I was given a timeline of maybe 8 to 10 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it was. I want to beat that as a competitor. So he's ramping up his baseball activity. We see him take some ground balls. He's doing some running. He's doing some swinging. At some point, though, he's going to get the green light to go. And what we asked him yesterday, and I wonder, and he didn't know, is once he gets the green light to start ramping up real baseball activity and start playing in games, does that happen in St. Paul? Does that go down to Fort Myers?
Yeah.
Part of me thinks it's going to be Fort Myers, even though he doesn't want it to be Fort Myers. And the player has to say in this. I was unaware of this, that it's in the CBA. If you're on the 40-man roster and you are coming off the IL, you have say as to where you rehab, and you have a lot of say. In fact, all the say. So they can now, if you're Royce Lewis, it's one thing. You're young. You want to get paid at some point, right? If you're Carlos Correa, that's another thing. It seemed like with Kepler, when he was out, he was kind of encouraged to rehab, and he agreed to it, and I think that was the best thing for him. Correa did not. So Royce is going to rehab. He's been out too long. That's not a debate, but will that start in Fort Myers, Dom, and build himself back up? Or does he say, hey, I don't want to do that. I want to go play with the Saints, and let's go. So that's kind of a little drama here that I'm curious to see how that's going to play out in the coming weeks.
Good stuff as always. Let's take a break. We come back. Much more with Cory as we get ready for the Twins and the Blue Jays, and then the Yankees are coming to Target Field early next week. Wrap up Hour 1 of Hot Mic. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody. You look at the Twins schedule here as we now into the month of May. 3 games with the Blue Jays, couple of matinees tomorrow and Sunday, off day on Monday, and then the Yankees are at Target Field next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Back with Cory Provus. I'm obligated to ask, since we're into this, we have any update on the TV side of things, or where do things stand that you know of right now?
I wish I had better news. The answer is no. Every day I hope for an email or a call to say that this stuff has been resolved, and that's not happening.
Yeah.
So it's devastating. It's sad. And I was telling somebody the other day. The folks that I feel so badly about, and it keeps me up sometimes at night about this. It's not the 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds who have not just means financially, but means from a technology standpoint
Right.
that they can probably find their way to it. But those that live in like assisted living facilities and senior citizen facilities, that maybe this is what they look forward to every day and every night, is gathering together in a room at 7 o'clock or 6:40 now and putting on the Twins game. And maybe many wear a Twins jersey or put on a hat or something, that for a couple hours, this is going to really bring a smile to their day. And that's the group that I don't, both financially and from just a technology standpoint, I don't know if they have the same means to do that others do.
Yeah.
And that fan base to me is on my mind more than anybody else right now. And it's tragic and sad, devastating. We're hurting our game. We're hurting certainly our team. So I hope for resolution, Dom, but sadly, I would love to be more optimistic, but I'm just going to give you my honest take, because it's your credibility and my credibility. I wish I had some better news, but hopefully that does come here at some point. But as the days go on, I start to lose faith.
And again, I'll remind everybody, it's not just the Twins in this boat. There are 11 other Major League Baseball franchises that are blacked out right now. And like Cory and I were talking about last week, and I'm not a great Wisconsin cable mind. I don't know how big Comcast is in Wisconsin or Georgia or Missouri or Texas, where or Ohio. It can't be small amounts. I'll just say that. It can't be small amounts of people that are blacked out right now.
It's silly.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen.
No.
And then I'm more upset too about the lack of in-market streaming.
Yeah.
That's still okay. If this is going on, well, let's go. I mean, we're in limbo here. This federal bankruptcy, decision and ruling. It's coming up in mid-January. I'm sorry, mid-June. So I would hope that some resolution, long-term, short-term, Dom, comes from that. At minimum,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Which is about a month away.
Tell us about this Blue Jays team. I know the fans remember certainly the series from last year. Is this a similar group? Did they change much in the offseason that we're going to see the next 3 nights?
Well, they thought, and this was some really smart and respected journalists. They thought this was the team that was getting Ohtani, and that didn't happen. And the Dodgers were here not too long ago, and Ohtani's obviously the best in the game and the most talented player in baseball history. I'm not saying he's the best of all time, but he's the most talented player that's ever, played this game at the big league level. But the Blue Jays have underperformed. The bullpen, in terms of ERA, has the highest ERA in baseball. Some of their big hitters that we've grown to see dominate, their numbers are down. George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s numbers are also down, but he's been a little unlucky. If you really kind of dive into his season so far, he's making some good contact, hitting a lot of even hard ground balls, but right at defenders, and line drives right at defenders. So his numbers, they look bad, but the quality of contact has been pretty awesome with him. So that's been surprising to see, that this team is under 500. They just had a team meeting the other day in Philadelphia, but they won. They were off yesterday. They won Wednesday, snapping the Phillies' 7-game winning streak. The Twins will see Yusei Kikuchi tonight, the lefty. He's the guy that came in for Jose Barrios there in Game 2, and Correa got the big hit against him, and that was the beginning of the end for the Blue Jays that day. Kevin Gausman goes Saturday. I think of Kevin Gausman, and I hear those chants at Target Field.
Yes.
I think of those, that chant, those sounds. It was awesome hearing that. They have his number. We'll see if that continues on Saturday. And Alek Manoah, who's still with Toronto, he's had an odd turn of events here. He just came back and rejoined the team. He's still getting hit pretty hard. He's in an interesting spot in his career. They see him on Sunday. So it lines up decently for the Twins. It does, let's say that. But, Toronto's hungry. They've underperformed. They know that this is an important stretch of baseball for them because of where they're at. The division they play in is tough. and they can't keep falling, farther and farther behind here. Before you know it, forget the division, but they may play themselves even out of wild card contention here if they don't turn things around pretty soon.
Great stuff as always, bud. Have a great time. I love Toronto. It's one of my all-time favorite cities. Have a great broadcast, and we'll see you next week, okay?
Thanks, Dom.
There he goes. Cory Provus, voice of the Minnesota Twins on Bally Sports North. Twins and the Blue Jays coming up tonight from Toronto, 6 o'clock East Coast time, so it's an early start there. Again, Michael Rand, who writes for the Star Tribune, visited with a Bally Sports North executive on where things are at. The GM, Randy Stevens, on the issue with Comcast and Diamond. And you heard Cory say it about the streaming part of it. You would hope, but again, where we're at, it's not great. Stevens said this isn't the first time we've been through this. Other providers have had pricing disputes and dropped Bally channels in the past, but Comcast felt different than a smaller streaming service like Hulu or YouTube TV. Said Comcast has always recognized the value of local sports, and we've always, through the years, found a way to come to an agreement. We are still hopeful that we'll come to agreement in this situation, hopefully quickly. If it's surprising, it's only surprising because they've been such good partners over the years in distributing this content to all the fans. He says, I would encourage fans that are frustrated and want to watch the games to check out the other options of DirecTV Stream, and Fubo, because they're there and they're airing the games on a nightly basis. So the games are available, and hold on, it refreshed on me as I was reading it. The games are available. I don't want people to lose sight of that. But no one's going to go and do that. And frankly, if you wanted to go and get DirecTV, it would be a while. I'm not a great, I do have a buddy. I might text him. It's probably 2 weeks before you can get somebody to come and install a dish. It doesn't happen like, hey, we can just turn it on. It's just a mess. We're going to take a break. We come back. We'll start our second hour. Cody Morgan will join us. For Bison assistant coach, we'll get his thoughts on Missouri State moving to Conference USA and coaching in the MAC. Some action. Hour 2 of Hot Mike begins right after this.